guess, the core mechanic that we were talking about. I guess if you had to describe playing the core mechanic to someone who had never ever seen a role-playing game ever, and you wanted to introduce them into it, could you describe that gameplay mechanic in like 2 sentences or less?
I don't know if I can do it in 2 sentences, but I can do it in just a few. It really comes down to, if you're the player, you describe what your character does or says. That might be as far as it goes. The DM will then say how the environment or other characters respond. If dice must be rolled, then it's usually just you roll a 20-sided die. You add a relevant number from your character sheet, and that number is compared to a target number to see if you succeeded or failed. I mean, at its heart, that's our system.
So it hasn't really changed much from like the third 3.5 and fourth editions. So then, I mean, how do you take that system, because it's worked, it has worked over many years. I mean, how do you take that system and move it into this iteration, and I guess how do you move it beyond?
Seeing some evolution in it is through the introduction of the mechanic of advantage and disadvantage. So as you all know, throughout D&D's 40 years, in every edition there has usually been a parade of bonuses and penalties, little +1 here, -1 there, -3 there, +4 there. We still have bonuses and penalties in the new edition. But we found that in play, keeping track of all of those could slow things down, could create a bit of a bookkeeping experience. And as we were working on the core system, we thought, all right, everything comes down to this roll of the D20. This is the core mechanic. And what could we do to make it do more work for us, to basically scoop up a lot of these situational modifiers? And we ended up with the mechanic of advantage and disadvantage. It's actually something we experimented with a bit in some of our class and power design in 4th edition. Like you'll see there's a version of it in the Avenger class in 4th edition. And Mike Merles was the one on the team who sort of, he had the light bulb go off. He thought, what if we tried this in the core? I loved the idea. We weren't sure if the fans would actually like it. This was something that we sent out in the public playtest, and we were ready for people to reject it. We were prepared for people to say, nope, this is too different. This doesn't feel like D&D. And Mike and I are always ready to kill our babies. And you really, as a designer of a game like this, you have to be. But we were happily surprised to find out that large majority of the playtesters love the mechanic. And that's a great way, I think, to show that even that simple mechanic can evolve in ways that can actually have a huge impact in the game. So now we've made it so that just by adding a second D20 in certain circumstances, we've simplified the game, and we've given the DM a powerful improvisational tool, because the DM now knows, when in doubt, if the DM wants to modify the situation in some way, he or she can impose disadvantage or grant advantage.
So, looking forward, we've got the 3 core books we know when they're coming out. When are we going to see the parade of settings? Is it just going to be Forgotten Realms and Eberron? Are you looking at Dark Sun and Ravenloft and Birthright? Anything like that we can look forward to? I'm sorry? Al-Qadim, yeah.
Well, so our focus right now is finishing up the core books. We also have the second installment of Tyranny of Dragons coming out, The Rise of Tiamat. The hints, though, are certainly there, because if you look at the player's handbook, the book is filled with references to all of our beloved settings. Our focus right now is certainly on the Forgotten Realms, but in the player's handbook you see references to Dragonlance, Greyhawk, Eberron. There are, in the monster manual, direct references to Ravenloft. So the references are there. That's the most I can say right now.
You know, to switch gears a little bit, is there anything going on in the tabletop arena? You guys, put out a bunch of tabletop board games, and it's been pretty quiet for a year. Anything developing in that area?
Our focus has been on finishing up the new edition. We did, within the past year, though, have the iOS version of Lords of Waterdeep come out. We've also had the expansion to that. And the team has also been working on other board game designs. Our board game design work often sort of follows its own schedule. If a game is ready, it comes out. Sometimes the team might have 2 or 3 designs that they're playtesting at any given time. Sometimes none at all. There'll be a period where it's sort of pondering or working on other projects.
So it is ongoing. I mean, you haven't abandoned it completely.
No.
Earlier you mentioned looking at a lot of fantasy video games, and when I received my Tyranny of Dragons character packet, it had a video game code in it that I could get an in-game item for. What's the D&D video game future looking like?
Well, the code obviously is for the Neverwinter MMO, where the Tyranny of Dragons story will also be featured. We have definitely we have pans in a number of fires and a lot of excitement and hopes, but nothing to announce at this point.
So, to go back to the settings subject, are there any plans to introduce perhaps a new setting or perhaps maybe new iconic characters into the mix? Maybe something to really, I guess, spark new imagination on top of what we've already built on top of?
All of us who work on the game are DMs at heart, which means we are world builders at heart. So we would love at some point to do a new setting, but our focus in the foreseeable future will be on the beloved settings that are already established, particularly because some of them haven't received much attention in quite some time.
Okay.
Like Alcadine.
You mentioned the Monster Manual. Can you tell me a little bit about the new Monster Manual that's coming out?
Have you had a chance to see it yet?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, because there are actually copies. We had some really early copies that were delivered here, and a few people got them. It's a beautiful book. Kate Irwin, our art director, and Bree Heiss, our lead graphic designer, did a spectacular job, also working with Emmy Tangi, one of our other graphic designers. I just love paging through the book. It's sort of one of those like fantasy bestiaries where just one gorgeous monster painting after another. But in addition to how great it looks, the book is, as you would expect, filled with stat blocks for all of the game's most classic monsters, with a lot of story information. We have lair information for the legendary monsters, as well as information on some stock NPCs. We have an appendix for the first time here where we have a variety of sort of standard NPCs that a DM could just quickly use.
Good.
As a DM, I'm excited to have the book.